brightly.
So welcome to today's session of Maintenance and Reliability Bootcamp. I appreciate you joining me here today to talk about RCM leadership and management. I want to give everybody an opportunity to join in Bob Reardon tomorrow at 1 p.m. where he is talking about the move from work order to RCM. That's a companion to today's presentation, so that may be of interest to you. I'm Dean Sorensen. I'm your presenter here today. I'm a director of facilities here at a senior living facility in New Hampshire. I have a master's in business, also management. I've worked in aerospace. The last project I worked on was design and development for the International Space Station. Also worked in manufacturing. What we're going to learn about today is leadership and management styles, growing your facilities team into an effective RCM organization. For that, we're going to have to discuss a little bit about the difference between maintenance and RCM, why WorksHub as a CMMS is essential to RCM, which is along the path to growing your organizational structure, and some of the implications of growing your RCM team. As well, this information is all available in my RCM manual, step-by-step guide at wb9mhi@gmail.com. So as with anything, the first thing we need to do is set a goal. Welcome. You've done that by attending this. I appreciate you being here. So let's get started. RCM isn't new. It's been around for a long time. It started in the 60s when the FAA and airlines were investigating crashes of aircraft. They're wanting to know how preventive maintenance capabilities could increase the reliability of aircraft. That led to a 747 maintenance steering group, which United Airlines then reported out in 1978 how their investigation showed that many failures could not be prevented. Many items, the probability of failure did not increase with age, and that maintenance based on age has little effect on the rate of failure. So this changed how airlines looked at maintenance, caused them to ask the question, how does the failure occur? What are the consequences? And what good can preventive maintenance do in economic terms? There are some indications that RCM might be right for your organization. One of the things that I look for is maintenance chaos. I'm sure we all have a story of maintenance chaos. It becomes evident when you have unplanned failures, which cause unbudgeted repairs. They're not scheduled. They interrupt the product and services that you're seeking to deliver. They certainly cost a lot of money, and they may even be costly to your brand or reputation. And they offer risk, which is to be avoided. When I was hired at my current position, I was told that amongst many things that I needed to be considering the roofing on the property. Being a large campus and many acres of asphalt shingles, I set out to take a look at what the roofing condition was. I was very surprised that the campus had been experiencing many leaks, and the roofing was unreliable. And upon inspection, I sometimes could find a nail in 100 square feet or a square of asphalt shingles. I sometimes could find tar paper or other decking material. It was evident that the system of roofing was in need of a lot of help. led essentially to an understanding of the importance of construction and having specifications. But there's more to it than that. If you're in an organization that's experiencing this type of chaos, you might be a functional based organization. Wrong with it. It just means you're apt to be thinking more narrowly in maintenance terms, people terms, customer service. These might look like individual conversations rather than a conversation that's taking everything all together. It's possible you're deploying reactive maintenance in this type of environment. It's common to see that this is referred to as silos and rice bowls. People start looking inward, looking at their own little effort and not necessarily about the bigger picture. When I experienced this with the roofing and coming on board with the campus, I started feeling like there were competing objectives. It was somewhat as if somebody was asking me to replace the tires on a Peterbilt semi truck as it's rolling down the road. These issues were in conflict with one another. So it's a pay me now or pay me later environment, as we all know. I think our job as managers and leaders is to do better than that. We can bring systems thinking to our organization. We can bring people together, customer service ideas, quality, and integrate that back into projects that do better all around the topic of RCM. So building this RCM team is going to cause us to think about our world of staff and projects in a whole different way. After all, think about it. It wasn't that many years ago, a plumber could work on a maintenance task and be just working on plumbing. Nowadays, plumbing is connected to systems. Systems have wires, they have controls. It becomes part of a bigger picture. These systems require a different way of thinking when it comes to management and leadership. There's nothing wrong with maintenance, but we need to know, is it maintenance or is it RCM? In maintenance, you're apt to be thinking about just one or more predominant form of maintenance, preventive maintenance in the case of the airlines. And if you're deploying that, you are deploying it uniformly across all of your assets. One of the things they learned in that investigation was that there's a concept called maintenance-induced failures. The whole idea that you would be working on something to perform preventive maintenance, yet it failed because you did the preventive maintenance. So we have RCM as another way of looking at it. We're going to look at the maintenance type that best meets the mission and the customer needs. So reliability centered maintenance is about knowing the consequences of the failure and preventing the failure to avoid unacceptable consequences. That brings about this idea that not all failures are unacceptable. So we need to be able to differentiate that, and that helps us define that there isn't a one size fits all when it comes to our maintenance strategy. That can be exampled in a master slave pump arrangement where you may be using this type of system to move hot water around to heat your facility, in which case you have a spare pump. Might cause you to perform much of your maintenance on a reactive basis, because once the pump fails, you have a pump to rely upon and you'll just fix the failed pump. However, if you take that same master slave system approach and put it into a hazardous material or fluid type production environment, the failure may not be of a type that you can accept the consequences. You may not want to use a reactive maintenance approach. So you have to put these maintenance strategies into a context. That's going to bring you into your basic maintenance process. As you think about your maintenance, you're always going to want to first start with the concept: is the reliability acceptable? You have to own that. If it's not, that's going to lead you into asking questions. You need to know if it's mission critical, whether or not you can improve the maintenance by improve the reliability by improving the maintenance, or if you need to go into redesign or deploy redundancy. So these are thought processes I think we're all familiar with, and we're just going to expand upon that for RCM. We're going to need a team. We can't do this by ourselves. In this graph here, I'm depicting the Goldilocks law. It's an inverted U-curve. It comes from the idea of there is a just right. You can have too little, too much, but we're looking for just right. If I see the what we're after is performance. You as the manager get to decide the performance of your team. That's your decision to make. If you're at a point where the performance is not what you think it should be, then it's possible that you have too much management or too much leadership. What do we mean by that? Management in this presentation is being controlling and directing. Leadership is avoiding, letting go, and delegating. So in this case here, if you found your performance to be subpar or below good in some way, you yourself can inspect your own management and leadership style and decide for yourself if you're letting go and delegating too much, or if you're not participating in offering instruction or guidance enough. So that is something that you want to be aware of as you move through RCM. Forming your team. Once you decide to do RCM, you have to think about this as a brand new team. Obviously, it is not, but you're going to be bringing forth some of the ideas and concepts that you'll be learning with Bob Reardon and going from work order to RCM. But as you form your team, you'll see that they'll go through stages of development themselves. Once they're formed, they'll go to the next stage, they'll storm, they'll go to the next stage, they'll norm, they'll go to the next stage, and they'll start performing. What I wish to show you here is that your management and leadership style is needing to change as they go through each of these stages. For example, if I have a team that's just starting to form, as I was working back when I first started with my current position, and I'm looking at the reactive maintenance that's going on around me, and I want to move beyond that and go into RCM, or at least go into some sort of planned maintenance, then what I found was that there were a lot of firefighters in the department. These firefighters had a supervisor that was one of the best firefighting supervisors I ever have known. What did I mean by that? If you had a pump springing a leak, or a roof leaking, or pick of something broke that you didn't want broke that day, that supervisor could firefight and get that back up and running quickly, no problem. Their default leadership / management style was to be directive. They were very good in that. And when I had the opportunity to start wanting to move on from there more into a planned type preventative maintenance approach leading on to RCM, I needed that supervisor to grow into other types of management style. They weren't able to do that. So that became a hindrance to implementing RCM. So these concepts here need to be known so you can identify where the work needs to occur as a manager, as a leader of your organization. Here I'm going to match up for you the team stages of development with the leadership style. So forming the team, obviously people aren't going to know a whole lot about what we're trying to do. You're going to need to be more directive, offer more instruction, give them structure, be more controlling, more supervising. As they grow into the next stage and become more comfortable with what you are trying to do, they'll have opinions for themselves. They'll express those opinions. Those opinions can come across as being argumentative or a storming situation. To an outsider, it might look like you're not getting along. In that case, you need to move on from being directive more into coaching and be supportive and praising, and start letting go a little bit and let people participate in the decision making. As they grow further, they're going to start norming. Things are going to be understood. People are working with little supervision. You're going to want to let go a little bit more, be more praising, more listening and facilitating, and so on, with performing to delegating. The piece that is highly important here is this whole idea of competence. Competence for your team is going to come from education and training. One of our challenges in this line of work is securing the training and the funding to train our people. The money for training is something that you have to seek, you have to obtain, you got to get it out there. There's ways to get training done on the job, there's ways to get it done online, but the training that you need to accomplish what you're trying to do is the training that you need to be bringing to your people. So as we look back and understand a little bit what we're doing with growing the team, we're going to be taking this performance from less good to good, and we're going to be changing our management and leadership style here as we go along. So what I want to point out here is the reason that supervisor that was an excellent firefighter wasn't going to work out was because if they're a firefighter, they're in this directing type management style, and there's only that optimal performance isn't going to get the organization to where it needs to go. It's only going to get to where that directing management style can take me, which isn't enough. You can't grow the team by being static. So as you go through the different types of leadership and management styles, you'll be decreasing your controlling and directing aspects of management and increasing your letting go and putting more systems in place. But you'll find there's an optimal piece. You can't be totally letting go and totally not directing, and vice versa. So here's where the homework comes in. If you took the opportunity to look at the homework, just to touch on that for a second, I asked for you to consider how would you describe your management style, and gave you some choices. What is the focus of your facilities department, and gave you some choices. And how would you rate the overall assets of your facility? The first two questions, we're going to put in a poll question here today. We'll take a look at the results at the end. We'll just find it interesting to see where everybody's at. So Matt here is going to put a poll question up. If you would take a moment and just answer that as I continue on. So here, when we're putting it all together, You'll see maintenance strategy listed out, the corresponding leadership style as I was discussing, the team stages of development as I was discussing, as well as the facilities condition. So if you think about where I was when I first joined the department with this reactive maintenance style and storming, I had a directive supervisor who was an excellent firefighter, but what were we doing? We were fixing it. That were all the things were breaking after it broke. The condition of the facility was fair, wasn't bad, but it was fair, and we could attribute what was going on at that time as being unpredictable or unreliable. So what we're trying to do is get beyond that, get into some other maintenance, not necessarily RCM, but get out of reactive and into some other maintenance type, in which case we would then adjust our leadership style accordingly and hopefully work into a fix it before it breaks or fix it and improvement operation mode. So the organizational structure matters. If I'm thinking about skill sets, my supervisors definitely got to have the right skill sets. They need to be able to understand what we're trying to do and to be able to adjust accordingly. And I need to be able to communicate as a director what the next steps are. We need to be able to address the business realities. Let's face it, we're all looking at a diminished pool of skilled workforce. It's getting increasingly difficult to find what I would call those firefighters. There's those skilled technicians who can on the spot come and diagnose and repair something. There's a critical imperative here that we make things more reliable, just simply because it's harder and harder to find people who can fix things on the spot. So we got to align our organizational structure to the business needs, and we can't be afraid to do that. When we're looking at our structure, we got in-house versus outsourcing. I want to just point out that you can outsource a lot of things within your facilities department. You need to do that smartly, but your in-house certainly would come with the strategic things that are most important to your operation, and they'd be generic, which case you're not reliant upon specialties to get that done. And you can't forget your vendors, such as your original equipment manufacturers. I had a national brand fire alarm company that once took care of us at the facility. We had a need to work with the fire department and the state of New Hampshire to redo the physical street addressing of our buildings on our property. And that caused a whole new reprogramming of the fire alarm system to occur, which then uncovered other issues within the fire alarm system that needed to be addressed. And what I desperately needed at the time was a partner who could help me with that. I couldn't find the partner. That company just wanted to do what they wanted to do. So making sure that you have vendors that are with you and where you need to go with your systems and reliability is not to be ignored. You need within your operations, you need overlap. So you got facilities processes, reliability processes, and maintenance processes. We can't be thinking in silos and rice bowls. I got a operations reliability champion and my operations supervisor. They're going to make sure that we're working on the right problems, that we're doing problem solving. We're going to be having meetings on reliability. We're going to be looking at root cause. We're going to be tracking outcomes. We're going to owning the failures and always seeking to do better. So we do this in a process improvement type of framework. This also means we might be putting teams together at any one time that are reporting to administratively to other supervisors. So there's a whole different approach. This represents the path to RCM. If you are looking at where we are, we're with the work order system. This is WorkSub here. We have the CMMS. You need to implement it. You can't just half implement it. There's a lot of functions and features in WorkSub. You need to be using that for asset management, preventive maintenance, purchasing, and everything else. Obtain your real-time control of where you're at with your PMs and work orders, but that system does not stand alone. It works within the context of best management practices. It needs to sit on a foundation of support for education and training. The 5S philosophy is a process improvement idea, but just think of process improvement. We need to be thinking about that. Your whole organization and your manner of assembling your teams and staff. You need to be thinking about training. And on top of that, it is at this point in time, we can start optimizing our maintenance and looking at RCM. So to put it all together, we can't be in reactive maintenance like where I was on that day I was looking at the roof. We need to move on and be more in the planned and proactive area. So as we think about implementing this RCM, and we're looking at each of the assets, we're going to evaluate each of the assets, and we're going to choose the type of maintenance that we have on the asset. What we're balancing is the cost of preventive maintenance to the cost of repair as it goes against the unacceptable failure or acceptable failure. So we're looking to optimize the cost. To optimize the cost, we're going to be looking at these levers that we can pull on. Reliability-centered maintenance then is going to be using reactive maintenance, preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, and proactive maintenance. You're going to be selecting the type of maintenance that works best for the particular asset or system that you're evaluating. Keep in mind that each of these maintenance types fit well broadly within certain criteria. The optimum maintenance then becomes something that you could think of as being intelligent maintenance. It's not totally reactive, it's not totally preventive, it's a happy medium, and you're building your team and you're leading them through these growth steps so the team can figure this out for themselves. So as we're thinking about this, we are not going to snap a finger and go from a non-RCM organization to an RCM organization. We're going to build into this mode of operation with RCM. We're going to use process improvement ideas. You can take a look at this as being akin to process improvement with the reliability improvement wheel that I have here. As you think about the work order coming in and then identifying the opportunity here, it looks an awful lot like I had an HVAC technician once upon a time who couldn't get a weekend off. They had to come in every weekend for one reason or another because the boiler plant would hiccup and we needed to get it back online. So we looked at the opportunity for how do we keep the boiler plant online, looked for possible solutions, implementing solutions, and lo and behold, can't keep the boiler plant online. That's when you can bring into your view the modified process chart, which is RCM. You can think about this chart as helping you getting to the right answer. So when that HVAC technician's having a hard time getting the boiler plant back online, We can look here again, is the reliability acceptable? The answer would be no. Is it satisfactory for the boiler to fail? That'd be a no. It's got an environmental impact to the occupants of the building. Is there a cost-effective way of monitoring this? Yeah, well, we knew it failed, so monitoring wasn't going to help us. Was there a regular failure pattern? We couldn't identify one. Sounds a little bit like the United Airlines report of 1978. We tried anyway, different planned and preventive maintenance strategies, and we'd come back up here to unacceptable reliability. That led us to redesign. That boiler plant exists today, and it is working very well. So as we think about the process and moving into RCM, if I'm going to incrementally increase, it can literally be broken down into a series of check boxes. In the manual, which you can obtain from me, I have what's called the RCM Path Tracker. That Path Tracker gives you an opportunity to move from the beginning first step through a logical order of steps to growing your team. So what have we discussed today? So we've talked about how using your management leadership style can benefit your team. We've talked about the building blocks for building your team, which we call the path. And we discussed at high level the ideas and process of optimizing your maintenance. I think this all adds up for manager and directors as a way to implement RCM. It'll lead incrementally over time to more planned, reliable operations that are on budget. You'll have scheduled outcomes, be it maintenance or the services and products you're delivering. It's going to reduce your cost because we're going to optimize those, and it's going to reduce your risk. So as we are looking at this here, we got poll results. And I'm looking at the questions. Question, you mentioned a very good point about the firefighter concept. What if there is a situation in which the firefighter has become somewhat of a superstar to management and resists the RCM concept? That's exactly what happened. Awkward, isn't it? Here you've got what you would arguably say is the best maintenance firefighter you've ever met in your life, but yet the RCM concept is not one they're willing to participate in. You got to have the right people on the team. You can't be thinking about trying to move forward when there's such a critical seat on the bus, as the metaphor is often used to keep or be a roadblock to success. So let's look at the poll. We had, I'll come back to questions here in a second. Directive 0%, coaching 37%, supportive 40%, delegating 23%. So we have a lot of people in the coaching and supportive area. It would seem like if we investigated a little bit further, this for the majority of the people listening here today, this is something you could probably tackle. As far as your motivation, we had 10% looking to save money, 33% fix it after it breaks, 13% fix it before it breaks, and 44% fix it while doing so to make it better. So again, if I take the 44% of fixing it while making it better, and the 13% of fixing it before it breaks, well, that's over half. So congratulations. I think there's a lot of people ready for the RCM journey if they're not already on it, on this talk here today. I have another question. Let me transition the slide. Before we get to the questions again, the only reason I'm pushing the manual is it's free. It's literally just something that you can use as a resource. It has the path in it. I'm glad to share. wb9mhi@gmail.com. It's a PDF. I can send it to you. So next question. How do you recommend you help them get to the fix it before it breaks mentality? Well, that's where the management and the leadership come in, isn't it? Getting them to that mentality gets you to the training. One of the things you find awkward when you're talking to a firefighter is, I have no time to be thinking about how to prevent fires because I'm so busy fighting the fire. There literally is this hump or this hurdle that you have to get over. If you can't devote at least some time, after all, time is meant to be used for those things that are important. If you can't identify that getting out of firefighting mode is important, then you're never going to find the time. The training piece, I've never been able to force anybody to learn anything. I haven't had that success. This particular individual was so happy firefighting, I was not able to move along. And as well, there was a few key members of his staff that were all adept at firefighting. I couldn't move them along either. How do you recommend you help them get to the fix it before it breaks mentality? Well, you know, life for me became much easier once I had what I called willing students. And once I had willing students on my team, it wasn't hard at all. I often talk about the lessons that the Coast Guard teach people. I haven't been in the Coast Guard, but if you're in the Coast Guard and they teach you how to survive after your ship sinks, they'll teach you that once you get in the water, to take a rope and to link all of yourselves together. And the reason you do that is your chances of survival are much higher than if you go it alone. It's no different here. So I try to bring some simple ideas that aren't as big picture as a reliability centered maintenance concept, and see if I can move things along. I always talk about boring facilities departments. My happiest, I'm happiest when there's a boring facilities department. How do you recommend you help them get it? Okay, can you touch more on the PM induced failure would look like? Oh, I go back and take a look. The United Airlines 1978 report is very important, but it turns out if you were to take, let's take this master slave pump arrangement in our hot water heat system. If you're going to break that down and replace bearings and seals on hours or some sort of time, you're running the risk that when you put it back together, you're going to have a problem. You just can't take things apart and have zero risk of putting it back together correctly. Sometimes you might not have the exact tool that you need, and you're using another tool. You open up a whole nother can of worms. Maintenance-induced failures is a topic, and it's very much something to be avoided if you can. How might you recommend bringing up the RCM mindset to leaders if you yourself aren't in a leadership position? That I didn't anticipate that question. That is exceptional. I would say if I was not in the leadership position, I would be studying it. You can get online training, you can get certifications, you can take this up as a point of interest for yourself. I would start talking about it. If you're working in maintenance, you can use certainly the basic maintenance diagram that I showed earlier, as well as the other one with RCM built into it. You can use that. I would just start advertising, this is how I solve my problems. Get people, draw them into your world and what you're doing. What would be the low-hanging fruit that could be used to start RCM? I think the low-hanging fruit are you go to the work order system. We have 2 minutes here left. You go to the work order system, you have the ability with WorksHub to develop an understanding of where your failures are most occurring, where your largest point of pain is. That's what we did. You start parsing out. You can't focus on everything. That's way too much. Find the one common thing that's hitting often and go after it. Use WorksHub and pull it out. That's the end of the questions. I want to thank you all for joining me today, Dean Sorensen, with this presentation. Again, the manual, it's free. I'm not pushing it. It's just a resource, wb9mhi@gmail.com. And I want to wish you the very best of luck in your RCM journey, and have a great rest of the day.